Welcome to Trumpet of God Ministries and Training Center. To order this teaching or any other teaching in its entirety, visit our website at trumpetofgod.org. Here's a snippet of an awesome teaching from Apostle Charlene Glover.
And the branch must be what? Continually submitted to the pruning process. So there's no discontinuation. We must continually be joined to the vine. We must continually abide in the vine. And we must continually be submitted to the pruning process so that we can bear fruit. Spiritual fruit takes time. Time in cultivation is required to produce fruit. Time in cultivation. You do not put a seed in the ground and go back in 2 days and expect to see a harvest from that. But if God has planted himself in you, if he's abiding in you, you can be assured of this, you're going to bear fruit. Fruit that remain must be, the branch must remain joined to the vine and must be willing to be pruned by the vine dresser. We said that the Greek word for prune is K-A-T-H-A-I-R-O. K-A-T-H-A-I-R-O. Katharo. Prune. It means to purify. It means to cleanse. It is implied that in farming it refers to cleansing the husk from the corn or cleansing the soil before planting crops. It implies that we're cleaning the shoots off of the branches. You ever seen, I used a crepe myrtle, and you have branches growing down at the base of the trunk of the tree. That's not where the branches belong. So you clean off, you cut away. The pruning is you cut away the excess shoots because they draw the spiritual sap away from the branches that need to grow and bear fruit. Karpos. K-A-R-P-O-S. Karpos is the Greek word for fruit. It implies, or it means, everything done in true partnership with Christ. Everything. So fruit is everything done. Fruit comes from. Fruit is developed. Fruit grows because everything we do is in partnership with Christ. As believers, we're the branch in partnership with the vine. We live in union with Christ. By definition, fruit results from two life streams. One, the Lord living his life through us to yield what is eternal. The Lord living his life through us. So we're not just living a life in Christ. Christ is living his life through us so that we can do what? Yield, that he can yield that which is eternal. So Christ is living his life through us. The Greek word for abide is meno. M-E-N-O, meno. Any Greek scholars in here? Okay, we'll take that definition and we'll take that pronunciation. How about that? It means to remain. It means to stay. It means to continue. It means to tarry or to endure or to live. It implies one dwelling at one's house, to abide or sustain unbroken fellowship with someone, to keep in fellowship with Christ. And so we're to abide with him. So number one, we need to be pruned so we can be purified or we can be cleansed or the excess can be removed from our lives. Number two, we need to do what? We need to bear fruit. And fruit is Christ living his life through us so that we will yield that which is eternal. And then meno, which means to abide, means that we have unbroken fellowship with Christ. Unbroken fellowship with Christ. So John 15:2 says, every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, that it may do what? Bear more fruit. God's design is less means more. Less means more, which means that a lot of times we're trying to get a lot of stuff and get in. No, you don't need more, you need less. Everything that God does, he does with what? A small amount to get a big amount. One son to get many sons. So many times God has to strip away, prune away, or cut away from our lives those things in our lives that keep us being fat and sassy or keep us disfocused from the kingdom. Have you ever noticed that people, when they're most blessed, have less time for God? There's something about the prayer closet and barrenness or the prayer closet and affliction that strengthens your resolve in God. When people are blessed, we thank God on the way. When people need God, they thank God in the prayer closet. So bearing fruit is an indicator that pruning is necessary for greater and continual fruitfulness. God's purpose is to cut away, listen to this, immature commitments and lesser priorities to make room for his glory. God's purpose, one of the things that God do in pruning us is to cut away our immature commitments. We have commitments to things about God, but God wants us to have a commitment to God. And then those lesser priorities. Have you ever noticed how many things can become more important than God? Let me show you how it happens. You get ready to pray or read, and what happens? Something gets your attention, and you're drawn away, and it's the end of the day, and you still haven't spent quality time with the Lord because you allow those lesser priorities to draw you away. The phone, the text, the Facebook, I got to go do something. Oh, I meant to call somebody. All those things. So God begins to deal with us so that he removes those lesser priorities so that our relationship with him is proper so that we can bear fruit. Because the truth is, if I don't have the presence of God or the grace of God upon my life, everything I do for him is naught. Because what did he say? The branch can do nothing of itself. So we really don't have any life substance apart from God. Praying for God to use us super abundantly. Anybody, God, use me. Whatever it takes, Lord, use me. Is really asking God for his shears. Now we're going to say it differently. God, use me, Lord. Just whatever you want to do, Lord, use me. He says, okay, let me pull out the pruning shears. Because in order to use you, I got to remove you. I got to remove the excesses from your life. And then we stop wanting to be used by God because we think we're in warfare, but we're really being prepared to be used by God. The kingdom of God is diametrically opposed to the secular world, the kingdom of this world, which means that the way the world operates, what do? We go get more of something, more things to build us up. God says, if I'm going to use you, I'm going to extract from you, and I'm going to use me in you, really. We want him to use us, but he really just wants legal rights in the earth for himself to be expressed. So praying for God to use us super abundantly is really asking God for God's shears. Pruning is one way God answers our prayers to be used for his glory. Pruning is one way that God uses us, or he makes us available for his glory, or make us useful for his glory. Likened unto the natural grapevine, all growth without pruning prevents the S-O-N and the S-U-N. In the natural, when you plant a grapevine and you put it on a trellis or you put it over a fence or something, grapes grow very thick and they grow back very rapidly. So that's why when you see a pruner pruning a grapevine, they cut off leaves and they cut off grapes. Why? Because the grapes that are good need to have sunlight come to them. And if it can't get the S-U-N on them, they can't grow properly. They won't be sweet. Well, if we can't get the S-O-N down in places in our life, then we won't be fruitful and we'll have a bitter taste to our lives. So God has to cut away things that keep the sun, S-O-N, from getting down into those areas of our lives that are not obvious to everybody else. When we don't understand that, if you look in a grapevine, and this is true, literally true, a grapevine, or if a grapevine is growing, or a vineyard, you go and watch that, you'll see those vines the branches be very thick. Well, if you don't cut back that excess dead wood, it pulls the life away from the fruit. So sometimes you see things, you say, God, I'm living, this is what we say, I'm living right, I don't smoke, I don't cuss, I don't fornicate. He said, I ain't got nothing to do with that. I got to cut something on the inside of you so you won't go back to that, so you won't have an appetite for something other than me. So we think that the extraction from the outside, but that's just to cut the dead wood away so we can get on the inside. Motive, motivation, attitude, disposition in the heart. And he takes us through a process, but the goal is, and the wonderful thing is, he can't use you if he can't prune you. But if he prune you, he will sure enough use you. So he has to cut us away on the inside so that the S-O-N can get down. Just like in the natural, the S-U-N has to get to the root of the fruit so that it can get the proper nutrients that it needs. Pruning is God asking you to let go of things that keep you from the kingdom purpose. So he starts pruning you to say, would you just let it go? See, you got to understand, anything that God cuts away, either you don't need it or he can handle the dead wood. And if you keep holding to the dead wood, the sure thing is you'll never have life in it. But if you just let it go and let God deal with it, what may be dead or what may need to be revived, God can do it. But the truth is, if it's connected to you, it cannot live if he wants to cut it. So pruning is asking God, pruning is God asking you to let go of things that keep you from his kingdom purpose. Is all pruning discipline? Is it? Is all pruning discipline? Because most of the time we feel anytime we're being cut or something's not pleasant, we just assume that either God's mad with us, he's disciplining us, but most of us think we're in warfare. It's the devil. I rebuke you, devil. No, it's not always the devil dealing with us. Sometimes it's the hand of the Father working on the Son. So is all pruning discipline? No, let's look at it. I have a chart. I hope you'll be able to see it there. And I actually took this from something from Bruce Wilkerson. Number one, the issue. How do you know what's happening? Discipline and pruning is the same in this. Both have pain. You will not be pruned without pain. You will not be disciplined without pain. Number two, why is it happening? Pain comes with discipline because there's something you've done wrong. However, in pruning, it's something you're doing right. But you're not going to be exempt from the pain. The fact that you are bearing fruit means you got to remember what he said in John 15? He says, if you bear fruit, I'm still going to cut you to bear more fruit. If you don't bear fruit, I'm going to cut you off. But if you do bear fruit, I'm going to cut you. And then listen to it. What is your level of fruitfulness? One basket? God says, no, I got to deal with that because you need to have more fruit. So pruning requires you what? To produce more fruit. The vine dresser's desire, fruit and more fruit. What needs to go? In discipline, he says sin needs to go. In pruning, self needs to go. So he's not disciplining us right now. He's pruning us. How should you feel? If you're being disciplined, you should feel guilty. In other words, I'm wrong, and you're going to be sad. But in pruning, relief and trust. Oh, now, how many just go ahead and do a sigh of relief? I'm being pruned. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't mess up. This is not the devil. This is the loving Father dealing with me, and he's removing from me those things that keep the S-O-N from getting to nourish me. What is the right response? If I'm being disciplined, I repent, and I stop. I stop sinning. But if I'm being pruned, what do I do? I'm at relief, and I give God permission. I give him permission. God, go ahead and prune me. You want to know if you're being pruned or not? Hold on. I'll tell you that in a minute. When does it stop? Under discipline? When you stop sinning. Under pruning? When God's finished. When God's finished. So no matter what you pray, what you fast, it doesn't matter what you do, pruning is necessary, and it is a God experience to bring us into greater fruitfulness. You cannot get out of pruning unless you just reject God. And if you reject him, then you're going to go into discipline. So either way, you're going to get cut. I'd like to get cut so I can bear more fruit. The truth is, God uses his word, his people, and often circumstances to prune us. God uses his word, he uses people, and he uses circumstances to prune us. And sometimes we reject people and circumstances because we don't realize they're sent or they're designed by God to prune us. In order to redirect to redirect our affections and our attention back to him as a source for life, that we may experience God's goodness and greater fruitfulness in our lives. So the goal is people are usually used to redirect your attention and your affection back to God. Many times when God allows adverse circumstances, they'll direct your attention back to God. Many times we have people in the wrong place, and God will allow them to hurt our feelings or to disappoint us to redirect our affections back to God. All of a sudden, that person that you held in place of God, God lets them cut you to the quick, and then you go to God and you learn to put God in proper place. He wants to be Lord of all and the foremost in the quarters of my heart, and everybody else on the peripheral of that. Is that right? Pruning may be in a sense of isolation, if he's dealing with you in your affections, a sense of insignificance, a sense of being misunderstood, a sense of failure, a sense of anger and frustration. You fill in the blank, whatever your sense is. But I'm trying to help you understand the difference between warfare and discipline and being pruned. And when we're being pruned, and God's pruning us because we still have places in our soul. We're soulish, we're more carnal, or we're soulish. We walk by our feelings rather than by the commands of God. He allows us to experience a sense of isolation. We feel all alone. Nobody's rejecting us. It's just that God won't let anybody minister to us because he's trying to get us out of our soul. A sense of insignificance. You used to be prominent in everything you did, in your eyes anyway. Now nobody even notices you. A sense of being misunderstood. You try to explain yourself and nobody really want to hear it. And it's because God is allowing you to have to work through it in your soul. Nobody else really needs the explanation. He's saying you need to work through it in your own soul. A sense of failure. I can't do anything. You're right. Without the vine, we can do nothing. And if you've ever gone through a sense of failure, like I just can't do anything, it is a good place. It's a humbling place to be. You start clinging back for God. God, I can't do nothing. I know we say I can't do anything without him, but if we look at a lot of things we're doing, we're not necessarily engaging him as Lord.
That concludes our teaching. To order this in its entirety, visit our website at trumpetofgod.org. You'll also find a list of several other awesome teachings from Apostle Charlene Glover. We look to hear from you soon.